Okay, this is my second attempt. Um, but I will take my time and make sure I make this video. And I love the fact that they're bringing this back up because this gives me a chance to just wrap it up the proper way. I'm a target individual. I'm a TI. I'm a TI. Then today, what's happening to me as a target individual? I'm being altered. I'm being altered, but what you call perps. No, well, let me just say this better. I'm being altered by technology that's been developed, invested on for decades, but entities such as the Department of Defense. The Department of Defense, since the 50s, after the Korean War, have invested a lot into technology that would be able to alter the mind. And they've actually accomplished so much even in the 60s and in the 70s. There was already, not proof, but I would say results that show how manipulative they were able to be with technology. At the time, now today considered as basic technology, but they used to implant neurons and it was less remote. Then they started investing in technology that could do these things remotely. Electromagnetic frequencies became a tool they start using to see if they could manipulate person or people using this technology that can manipulate you remotely. No need to implant neurons. And so you can only imagine how far they've gone from the 60s, the 70s to today. The manipulations are they're so precise, but they're also disturbing because they're utilizing this technology as a weapon. They can make you have experiences that's so disgusting, this degrading, and it's clearly utilized in a weaponized way. Now, but on top of that, as a target individual, what I've been experiencing, just like a lot of other target individuals, is this ecosystem of what we call perps. Perps are those bottom feeders, we call them. I'll call them bottom feeders. They are the bottom feeders. They are the participants in this program that's obviously ran by these governmental entities linked to the intelligence community, linked to the DoD. To implement this, they are nobodies. I don't think most of them are not actually working directly for the government, but they are obviously implementing things for those entities. But they try to paint the facade that this is anything but this massive government, and the facade can be as comical as it gets. Those perps, those bottom feeders come in all shape or form. The technology seems to be so sophisticated that not only the target individual is being manipulated, but it seems like the way they manage this low life seems to be utilizing this technology. It's super orchestrated that it has to be inclusive in this management of this trash, of this low life, of these bottom feeders. You can even see little children start saying things that the kids able to say these nasty things. So you understand that there's some kind of level of also not even manipulation, management using this technology. But it's clear these people are nobody. But the way they want you to think of things as you're being manipulated, this is what's magical. And gaslighting, if you don't know what it is to try to make you identify to false reality. Let me just say, I just learned what gaslighting, like where the word gaslighting came from, and it's amazing because now that I understand where that come from and what it meant, it makes even more sense of what gaslighting. So let me just say this. I'd love to bring that up. I heard that gaslighting actually came from a play where basically, and it's not the movie that we all know about gaslighting. This is a play where in 1930 there was a play where a husband was trying to drive his wife into insanity. And so what he would do is he would dim the gas light and act like he didn't do it, and the wife would be like, what just happened? Why is it get dark? It's getting darker. And the husband will act like he didn't do anything. and not seeing what's happening here. Driving the wife into a state of insanity because she's thinking she's going blind or something. Things are getting darker here. When in truth is the reason why things are getting darker is because this husband is purposely turning it down and acting like nothing is happening. That's what they're doing here. They are purposely altering my brain in these degrading ways and then act like they're just observing what they just observing is not being manipulated. Gaslighting like is like so obvious. And they do things like just observing their phones. Because when they look at their phone, it's clear the brain is not being manipulated. They are so gimmicky and so obviously gaslighting. Some of the gaslighting tactics are like, oh, you're not, huh? Oh, you're not, basically, because they do this nasty manipulation, which are called pedophilia type of torture by other target individual. It's like, oh, you're not a pedophile. Oh, you're not, huh? And they say things like that. Looking at their phones, like, you're not, huh? I'm like, oh my gosh, this is as obvious as it gets. That's why I always bring up this like play now, because I'm like, literally, that's what they're doing. They're just altering me in the way they want me to be altered, manipulate me in that fashion. Then look at their phone and just observing. It is super obvious. But how they want you to identify with this is that's when things get even more stupid. They're telling me what they're doing is not just not manipulating you. They're making you experience what you used to experience as a child. Now, I'm going to bring this specific thing here that you're seeing. This is a picture of me in 2000. About 3 months or so before I turned 13 years old. You can tell that this is a child, but let's just say I looked more developed. One thing that you can never mistake is the brain of a child, as they try to play with my brain, is not at the same level as a brain of an adult. You don't need to see an MRI of that, right? But just in case you needed that validation, neuroscientists who were going through some cases of children who have done things that are extreme, inclusive of killing, as they try to change. You hear this noise campaign, this is what you call gaslighting. These extreme things, inclusive of killing, they start looking at the brain of children so they can assess crimes from children the right way. And we're talking about extreme crimes in this case, which in my brain they try to create these things to create something that's falsified. That's why you hear this whole noise campaign. You heard that like so it's you'll see how bad it is for them to do this when you're gonna hear what's gonna come up. And so as they're assessing these crimes from these children, inclusive of murders, we're talking about taking the life of people. That's how extreme as it gets. They say, well, listen, children brain, when you look at the brain, especially that part of the brain, as you can see there, are not fully developed. And this is why things can happen in this impulsive way. You see the adult brain, it looks like that. The child's brain looks like that because it's not fully developed. Now, the reason why I bring that up is because for them to say that what they're doing is they're making me experience what I experienced when I was a child, clearly says something that they're making me mentally developed, mentally undeveloped, or mentally retarded. Because they're saying literally, well, the brain of a child is not developed. That's why you... Now, I know that they're not this retarded. They know that very well. What they're doing is they want me to identify and rationalize these manipulations. It's clear that they're just changing my brain in order for me to experience that. And not only they're doing that, it gets so bad that in this case here that you're seeing, they're even falsifying memories. This technology can alter memories. The terrible, the disgusting and stupid and idiotic part, to make me identify with this experience I'm experiencing today because I'm manipulating this way to have these experiences. They are falsifying the memory of me when I'm a child to add to this fucking stupidity. But wait till I add to, like, this is just the beginning here. I'm just bringing the first layer before I finish that up. Now, this technology can alter your mind. They just want me to identify with this manipulation by thinking that they're mimicking my brain when I was a child. It's so disgusting. They're not mimicking my brain as a child. They actually falsify my memories as a child. But it's clear that children's brain should not be mimicked, because it's clear that the brain of children are not developed. So what you're saying is you're making me mentally retarded. Now, going back to this here. I'm about to turn 13 years old. Now, let's talk about when I just turned 13. This is in December of this year. About 4 or 5 years later. No, not 4 or 5 years, sorry. 4 or 5 months later, as you can see, it's hard for me to speak. They falsify memory, which I always bring it up with Sarah. It's been going to extreme from one extreme to another extreme. Try to find ways to gauge what can be manipulated and make me be identified with this manipulation or this falsification. I mean, it got so bad. It's like, yeah, now Sarah, she knows. Sorry to Sarah. It doesn't. Sarah knows, like, all kind of stuff. Just try to create something that didn't even happen. Sarah was one of the little girl that I lived with. When I used to live at this family's house for Christmas, they hosted me. I was on the computer, excited. I'm from this third world country, playing computer games. They had a nice computer. It was my first time actually being really like around this kind of computer. I loved it. Even the game was basic, but it was just fun to me. I could be on it all the time. It was just so much fun. As I'm on the computer, I'm 13 years old or so. Sarah comes. There was a nanny or somebody who used to clean around, and also a nanny. But I don't know how she got away from her, and I'm playing the game. Sarah comes, and she's like, I want to play. First, it's kind of annoying, but I look at Sarah, I was like, oh, you're so cute. I start kissing her cheeks, like, mwah, mwah, mwah. But then I go back, and she's like, no, I want to play. And first of all, she wiped her cheeks, like, yeah. And I'm like, I want to play. So it's just getting annoying now. First of all, as this is happening, what they're doing, they give me sexual stimulation. You had the stimulation, you felt that stimulation. And they're doing these whip noises. And I want to bring that up because what you're going to hear next is so disgusting and alarming. To know this bottom feeders are trying to gaslight me using that and the falsification as they're doing the whip noise. What they're doing in my memories, they're putting stimulation that wasn't there and make me feel like you felt that stimulation, and this is like not true. You just falsify my memories in this fashion. It got so far, I was like, no, you're fondling her, and then you molest, like some disgusting things of that nature. But they're going back to the beginning of how they were manipulating me, how to manipulate my memories. Then, like after me kissing her on the cheek, and her just, and they try to make me make me see something else, but my brain is being manipulated. I go back, I try to play. She's still annoying a little bit because she still want to play, and it's just getting annoying. Then it comes, and I'm like, oh, thank God. And she's like, hey, Sarah, come with me. I was like, oh. I'm like, yo, thank you. The memories they try to change, like, oh, no, you're mad that the nanny was there. You wanted to do this more things to her. And they make me think of me when I was playing mom and dad with when I was like 10 and I was playing with somebody who was like 9 or so. Around either 8 or 9 when I'm 10. This is what we're talking about right now. And this is the manipulation. But I want to start with this. I want to indulge in the stupidity first before I get into the foulness. Now, that is falsified. They falsify memories with stimulations of that nature. Now, Let's go to what this is about. Listen, the one inappropriate act of what I did as a child was actually when I was like just turned 14 years old. That's what I did, something that was inappropriate. I just discovered something. I had doing something to myself. And I did something inappropriate, an act of a child. That is the real, only inappropriate act as a child. This is something I did to myself. They tried to exaggerate that. It's something I look back, I was like, oh, what was I thinking? The reason why they tried to falsify the Sarah thing is because they tried to create a pattern. And so the actual inappropriate act of what I did as a child happened a year later when I discovered something that I could do to myself. That summer, it was a summer of just a lot of that. As a kid who just about to turn 14 years old or just turned 14 years old. That's when you look at a child impulsive act. And that impulsive act happened this time and it's inappropriate. That is what is inappropriate. What they're just trying to create with Sarah is a falsified version of what actually happened. Right now, I'm listening to noise campaign. They're slamming the door. They do this and that. Bah. Okay. Now that's the fun part starts. This trash making this noise campaign, mad about what I did actually. Now that not the things they've tried to falsify with Sarah, but what I did the next year to myself after learning how to do something to myself. Which sometimes, by the way, I see grown men, grown women mimicking this child act of a middle schooler to be like, "Hey, remember that? Remember what you did to yourself?" Is a gesture, play with yourself. Grown men to try to be like, "Yeah, you remember what you did when you were 8th grade?" Like, can you imagine? You talk about somebody who's 13, 14 years old. The reason why this is extremely disturbing is what you're gonna hear next. Target individual. The entities that's behind what's happening to us are not just any entities. We're talking about intelligence community. We're talking about the Department of Defense. Those two main entities are behind what is happening to us. Today, I'm being manipulated by entities that are developing this technology. They contract this trash that try to make me think, now we're just mapping your brain. We're mapped. It used you when you're a child. And they say these things via V2K voices call and try to project those or projecting their voices into my brains, try to make me subscribe to it. They're not mapping my brain in that sense. They're mapping my brain to manipulate my brain to have experiences of sexual nature toward children. They want me to have sexual arousals every time I see these little kids. And then act like they're just observing it. Remember the gaslighting thing? That's what they're doing. And then want to rationalize it, but now remember what you did as a child. And they even bring up the things that they even falsified themselves with Sarah. And so now we're mad at. These trash are clowns. Now, who is mapping? Who's behind this? The entities behind this program that have been developing this program are in charge of this program, empowering these retards in whatever shape or form, are governmental entities linked to the Department of Defense and the intelligence community. There's been clear issues with pedophilia. That is so disgusting to hear that these are the trash who wants me with the little credibility they have at this point. Not only I know who I am, you think I'm going to be like, no, you're making my brain be a brain of a child. You see, it makes more sense when you assess somebody to make them think the way they thought when they were children. We clearly know that the brain is very developed at that age. That's why somebody would want to make them think the way they thought when you were kids. These neuroscientists were off. They're wrong. It's not true. Children's brains are not underdeveloped. Retard trash. The entities behind this program, developing this technology that alters and manipulates your brains, at the Department of Defense and Intelligence Community. They've been working on this technology for years. And those entities, guess what? That is when magic happens here. There's been consistent issues with pedophilia within this intelligence community and even the Department of Defense. It got so bad that in 2019 a bill was introduced to stop the employees at the Department of Defense from downloading child porn. A BuzzFeed article comes up showing that there's a lot of pedophilia issues and problems happening from CIAs and other intelligence community. Seeing a trend there that consistently happening with employees there doing things to children, watching children get raped, and things of that nature. Do you think they go into in their brain when they're children and mad dads? Trash retards. And to add to that, this program is literally utilizing children as guinea pigs. Children are being tortured, harmed, and some of them are dying. Today, parents are bringing their babies, their kids, and be like, oh, we're mapped at. Who is mapping? This top tier pedophiles? They make me have this sexual stimulation toward like little 4-year-old little girls. Like, a 4-year-old trash. Let's go hear what they do to 4-year-old kids in this program. And then go hear what they do to these 2-year-old kids or the 6-year-old kids from the CIA agent. Or go hear what they do in this DoD employees watching child porn. It's been magical. I love the fact that the people who try to convince you that you're not being manipulated in these degrading ways are actually bottom feeders for governmental entities that clearly have issue with pedophilia. They tell me how they're going to frame me with children. Validating me even more clearly, there's a pedophilia-centric thing going on here. Pedophilia type of torture is utilized as a weapon. Pedophilia issues are happening within these entities. And they're normalizing pedophilia type of like tormenting tactics. These are the trash making noise campaign with whipping noise. Tell me, are you gonna be castrated? Yeah, I'm gonna be castrated by bottom feeder for pedophiles. And they tell me they're framing me with this fucking retarded kids. You've seen this Leia, whatever the F it is. A child pretending she's 30 years old. This is the trash. Investigating my brain. And then falsifying memories, even me when I'm like 13 years old, to create a false pattern. And say, for Sarah. You know how many fucking falsifications of memories they had of that? There's a grown woman who was like, yeah, Sarah knows too. I was like, even falsifying that. She knows I kissed her on the cheek. By the way, the same thing I did when she was like on the computer. I did that in front of the dead. Kiss the chick. The dead is like, oh, Sarah, you look so cute. I want to eat you, or something like that. They've been rewiring that something disgusting. The dead is behind me. These clowns are making noise. Trash us out here, torturing children while working for pedophiles out here, raping two-year-old kids. Trash bottom feeders. I'd rather die in hell than sell my soul to pedophiles and fail drastically in the facade. Talking video, listen to the reality of what this is about.
Single scope background investigation. There are people, they interview you, they interview your family, they interview your.
For that, we're not going to get graphic or anything, but we're just going to talk about what some of these allegations are. And really, the big story behind this CIA report, well, one of the stories is the lack of story. The fact that BuzzFeed reported on this, good for them. But obviously, it was covered up by intelligence agencies. And it has not been reported on widely. The Federalist reported on it. Some other journalists talked about it, but you probably didn't even hear about it. I only heard about it the other day, several days after it had been originally reported. And the fact that this isn't a huge bombshell that everyone is talking about is really disturbing. What is it? Are we just used to this kind of child sexual abuse? Has it become normalized? Has it become sterilized in some way that we just don't really want to talk about it? I do also wonder if any mention of pedophilia in the ranks of the intelligence world, or in the ranks of the government, or in the powers that be, has been so cleverly associated with conspiracy theory over the past several years. And part of it is because there are conspiracy theorists, like QAnon conspiracy theorists, who push ridiculous things that have also made it more difficult for people to raise actual allegations of pedophilia and sex trafficking and child sex abuse. But I do wonder if some propagandists in the media have done such a good job of tying any allegations of sex trafficking and pedophilia to conspiracy theories that most people just don't want to talk about it because they don't want to be seen as some Pizzagate QAnon person. And that in itself is evil. But the fact of the matter is that this is something that is going on. This is something that has gone on. So the loss of credibility that intelligence agencies have garnered over the past several years is something that they have brought on themselves. And this is the straw on the camel's back.
Experimental fact: frog muscle contract physical.
The child porn on the Pentagon servers.
Come on,
bro. Supposedly they found more child porn on the Pentagon servers than they found on any servers.
Could there be
consistently watchdog
space however you want, and you certainly don't have the right to use it in a criminal manner. So essentially this bill is trying to
is a shameful disgrace, and one we must fight head-on, Spanberger said in a statement. According to child pornography watchdog Internet Crimes Against Children Child Online Protective Services, the Defense Department network consistently ranks in the top tier of Internet service providers for trafficking child pornography. It ranked 19th of nearly 3,000 networks surveyed in 2018. Meta
agency. Others also work at this, for instance, the National Security Agency, the National Reconnaissance Office, and the very secretive Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. Others also work.
Two-year-old and a 6-year-old. He was simply fired. One employee purchased sexually explicit videos of young girls filmed by their mothers. He resigned. One employee estimated that he had viewed up to 1,400 sexually abusive images of children while on agency assignments. Not sure what actions, if any, were taken by him. One contractor arranged for sex with an undercover FBI agent. I think that you mentioned that. Posing as a child, he had his contract revoked. One CIA staffer was charged with child sexual crimes, and the employee was also under investigation for mishandling classified material. But sexual crimes involving children, says BuzzFeed, including the viewing of images of abuse, have been uncovered at other agencies that handle sensitive information. In a November 2009 report, the Department of Defense acknowledged that dozens of Pentagon staff members or contractors had such images. In 2014, the Inspector General of the Intelligence Community found that 2 officials from the National Reconnaissance Office, which oversees America's spy satellites, acknowledged viewing images of child sexual abuse during polygraph examinations. This is so disturbing. At a symposium in 2016, Daniel Payne, a top Pentagon security official, said that when workers' computers were examined, the amount of child porn I see is just unbelievable. Is this something that is happening in the general evil?
Allie, we're told, and when I was put through recruitment into the intel community, you're put through polygraphs, you're put through a rigorous selection process. Why aren't these people weeded out? Why are so many pedophiles allowed to be given top level security clearance. Remember, these aren't just people walking in off the street and saying, hey, can I get hired? Can I get a job? You're put through an extremely rigorous background check screening process. It's called an SSBI, single scope background investigation. There are people, they interview you, they interview your family, they interview your contacts, they go through your online footprint, they go through everything. So why is it that when they're going through these footprints, they're not checking these digital footprints, they're not checking for so many pedophiles getting through their ranks? If it were up to me, you need to go into Congress, and Congress needs to launch a brand new church committee, number one, to talk about domestic surveillance operations, but number two, to ask the question, why are there so many pedophiles sitting behind
the CIA raping children and sexually assaulting children, and they're not being prosecuted? Where are you?
Has come under investigation for links to the proliferation of graphic material. Called Project Flickr, some 5,000 individuals have been identified as having subscriptions to child porn sites, including many DoD-affiliated persons. So this ongoing national investigation has now prompted the House to introduce a bipartisan bill that would help the DoD stop the use of its network to, quote, possess, procure, or produce child pornography. Joining us to discuss this, investigative journalist Ben Swan. So Ben, the Pentagon already takes measures to limit worker access to stuff like porn by rolling out what they call the Personal Electronic Device PED policy, where workers have to drop off their phones and lockers before entering their offices. All their online searches are accessible by security if or when needed. Their Wi-Fi access is monitored in digital security sweeps. So how is this happening?
Well, it's happening because even though there is a certain amount of limitation on access, those who are working in the Department of Defense, clearly it appears to be thousands of individuals in the Department of Defense, are finding ways around this, specifically by using the Department of Defense IP addresses and also apparently peer-to-peer sharing within the department's network. So this study that was done on this issue, and it is pretty horrifying, Manila, to consider this. It shows that the Department of Defense ranked 19th out of almost 3,000 networks in terms of peer-to-peer sharing of child pornography. That is absolutely incredible. This bill attempts to essentially say, look, we're not doing enough to stop it from coming in, but we're also not doing enough in the Department of Defense to go after those individuals who are being recognized as the ones who are perpetrating this.
So Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger is the co-author to this bill. She said this, quote, the notion that the Department of Defense's network and Pentagon-issued computers may be used to view, create, or circulate such horrifying images is a shameful disgrace and one we must fight head-on. Now, the fact that the Pentagon workers, be they civil or military or otherwise, already submit to a gauntlet of daily scrutiny just going in and out of work, is it fair then to the tens of thousands who are completely innocent to further allow that much more government intrusion into their digital devices or the things that they're dealing with on their computers?
Well, remember that what's being talked about here is not an intrusion into someone's personal device or even their home. This is about saying Department of Defense computers are being misused to share, to spread, to access child pornography. And when you step into an office, whether it's a Department of Defense office or it's the offices at RT America, wherever you go into an office, you do not
made to smell various things.
Microwave radiation to control human behavior. To control the brain. In 1965, DARPA launched Project Pandora, which studied the possibility of using microwave radiation to control human behavior. The project reportedly ended in 1969, but DARPA's investigation of how machines can affect and possibly control the brain continues to this day. Human mind can be altered. In 1965, DARPA launched Project Pandora, which studied the possibility of using microwave radiation to control human behavior.
Of innocent citizens being controlled by government-sanctioned experiments? Is Cheryl Welch telling the truth, or are her claims absurd? Just another conspiracy theory that's impossible to prove? Maybe. But not if you listen to Nick Begich.
I think there's some good evidence that Cheryl Welch and many of the other people I've spoken with have been victimized by this electromagnetic mind control experiments. The weapons of this century aren't bombs and bullets and ordnance, but electromagnetic energy targeting the human being, which is a greatest revolution in military affairs since gunpowder.
Begich is an expert in government mind control. He is convinced the Pentagon has mastered a technology once thought to be science fiction, the ability to broadcast information directly into the human brain.
Our government began spending a lot of time looking at how to modify behavior of human beings. Going back to the Korean War, in fact, in a publication, Low-Intensity Conflict in Modern Technology, they have a chapter on electromagnetic weapon systems, being able to not just to debilitate someone, but actually even to stimulate certain activities within the brain.
But how?
HARP is the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Project, which started as a joint effort of the Air Force and Navy. This is a very large array or field of antennas based in Alaska, radio frequency antennas.
HARP antennas transmit powerful radio signals into the upper atmosphere to study the effects on wireless communications. But Begich says HARP can also be used for more sinister ends.
HARP has announced several other programs and campaigns, and there's two areas that I got very concerned about. One was weather modification applications. The other was the effect on human beings. If you can modulate a signal that the brain locks onto, recognizes, and begins to mirror or follow the frequency following response. The brain rhythms change, then it creates a chemical cascade within the brain and the emotions change. Now the resolution gets finer and finer and finer. And it used to just to be about triggering emotions. You could change people's brain chemistry pretty readily, change their emotional state pretty easily. But when you get down to the idea of thoughts and being able to manipulate those, that requires a different kind of sophistication.
It's called offensive information
radiation, non-ionizing radiation for the use of cognitive control or behavior control. I've submitted a paper to you, and there's another paper submitted to each member from another physician in Kansas City, alluding to the same thing.
You do that, you can control them using neuro-linguistic programming techniques. You're rewiring their thought processes and brains. And so this gets into what's called offensive information warfare. And they used it, I believe, in the Gulf War. You can call it a eugenics program even. But also walk them to their... They want to see if they can... Hyper game theory. How do you... They want to see if they can manipulate people to do things that are irrational, but also walk them to their death. And so you can call it a eugenics program even. And they need to sample all cultures, language throughout the world to define their probability matrices of which tricks, techniques, deception works. So how do you control a brain? Most people don't believe that. Well, you can't control me. I have my own free will.
V2K, or voice to skull. This involves the projection of voices, noises, and music directly into my mind to communicate with me in real time and at the speed of thought. And it also includes the manipulation of thoughts, emotions, and perceptions in the person's mind. Additionally, the targeting is all highly perverted and sexual, as well as just
It is dramatic. It's somebody trying to end my life. It's somebody trying to end who I am as a person. It's somebody trying to take over my mind, putting thoughts of pedophilia. This disgusting, disgusting, disgusting things. You saw where I was going with that first word. Disgusting things that I don't even want to talk about because it makes me sick. I don't even like those words in my mind. But it is what it is. So I have no choice now but to acknowledge that there are people in my surroundings or whatever they're doing. I don't know how they do it. I don't care. I don't know if it's through weapons. I don't know. I don't care.
This is a common breakdown tactic of belief systems and the human will. In no-touch torture, the techniques are more psychologically specialized for each target. Most common examples include homosexual targets that are forced with voices that are derogatory to their lifestyle and similar mental images. Almost all targets are forced to view child pornography in their minds. And vice versa.
They use these monarch-style torture programs, like it's based on sex and trauma. So they're gonna traumatize you. They're gonna use your libido to get back at you, and
this technology can be used to sexually manipulate the target. It can make the target feel sexual arousal.
experience what is referred to as malodorance. This is the alteration of the smell sensation so that I am often made to smell various things, including smoke, burning, dirty diaper, or baby powder, which they sometimes combine with the pedophilia type of torture, including the threat of planted dreams and form of torture. They coordinate the voice. I really mean extreme. I experienced an entire night with forced spontaneous orgasms repeatedly all through the night, one right after another, with maybe around 1 hour of sleep or so, as I lay immobilized in my bed.
In my mind, I can hear my own voice. I told them I'm going to make you pay for all of the years of torture that I've taken, and all you are going to me and my family. Ben said the slaves began a program of perversion. First was with my dog. I am very playful with my pet, and suddenly one day that I was petting him I felt strange, in the sense of the word. I thought, this is strange, and then afterwards that strange sensation continue. Then in that moment I realized that was impost, so I thought, look at this losers, don't know how to put me down, and they are doing this. So I told them that I know what you are trying to do, and I started laughing, and then I said again out loud, you'll never take my will, ass. So just to show them that I meant what I said, I kept playing with my dog, and even though that attacks continue, I don't let them get me. Information is written.
Pedophilia type of images and videos. I also often see highly disturbing pornographic images and videos, including highly disturbing pedophilia type of images and videos when I close my eyes.
Be my guess that this person developed delusional disorder. This is a paranoid schizophrenia. But first of all, nobody develops paranoid schizophrenia in the 50s, in their 50s. This is, if you haven't developed it by 30, it's not. Then this technology exists. These nefarious programs exist. And it's hard to imagine for a person that why would you do something like this? But if you think about
the new type of warfare.
Cognitive warfare.
Exactly. It's a cognitive warfare. You don't have to kill people that you are fighting against. You can just degrade their brain. You can,
you alter their minds.
Yeah, alter their minds.
Personalities.
And it's like Chinese torture. I mean, okay, so.
So this gets into creating Manchurian candidates, split personality, and information curtains, satanic ritual. Okay, so they'll say we're the Russian government, we're the Chinese government, we're evil aliens, we're Satan's. So they'll say we're the V2K. So they'll say we're the Russian government, we're the Chinese government, we're evil aliens, we're Satan's, satanic ritual abuse. And I've heard all these stories. One guy believed it was some 14-year-old kid with an Xbox that lived next door. The trickery really is that great when you're under hypnosis that people will believe something other than a massive government could do this.
It's already being used. I mean,
if you talk to the victims, the TIs, one of the worst breakdowns, and it's pretty common. I think I can say the word simulated rape and forced orgasm.
You can say anything you want. This is the internet.
Okay. And so simulated orgasms and rape is extremely common, and especially violating for women. They complain about that torture breakdown the most.
You feel that you've been injustice? You mean as far as the Justice Department feeling me? Well, in terms of your being a victim. You mean what I'm feeling? Yeah, explain a little bit to me how you perceive yourself as being. I have actual photographs of burns on my body. When I went to my doctor, the response was, "How do I know you didn't do that to yourself?" How do you even address that? I've passed 2 psychological evaluations, not 1, but 2. The one physician said, "You're mentally sound as a bell." He said, "I don't have any idea what's going on with you." When I go to sleep, when I go to try to sleep, I feel like I'm being lit up like a Christmas tree. I feel every cell in my body just bouncing out of my body. I can't even describe it. I get electric shock of my rectum. I get electric shock up my nose. I've woken up with burns on the end of my tongue. I've had burns on the palms of both of my hands. I vibrate. I can barely hold a piece of paper without quivering. Does that answer your question? I'm trying to find what's the source of the... The source are these exotic weapons. They talk about in 2970, but if you would pass it, it might give other communities the courage to do the same thing and show our Defense Department we are not the enemy. We are not to be attacked. We are not terrorists. Most of us are defenseless women. Next speaker.
Hello, my name is Kimberly Buckner, and I have been a targeted individual for a very long time. The things I have experienced due to being targeted, they have been unreal. But however, I can personally attest that this is very real indeed. My life has been destroyed in every possible way, and every day has been a struggle for me. I'm very grateful to be before you today due to Amy Anderson's due diligence and to everyone else involved. I thank you, council members, for giving us targeted individuals a chance to speak and to be heard. And I pray that these atrocities will soon be brought to an end. But we need your help. Thank you. Alex.
Military medical research. I too believe my experience is referred to as no-touch torture, utilizing defense technologies. Jonathan Reno, he basically predicted all this a number of years ago in his book Undue Risk.
Face, and it was an older guy. He was like really, really disgruntled and pissed off. Yeah, you're gonna get shot in the face. You know, sound like an angry ass old person. You know, then a couple of days later, a female said the same thing. Gonna get shot in the face. You know, stupid shit like that. But what I really noticed is with the Voice of Skull, it's a bunch of females. You know, and I'm like, bro, really? You're not a woman. What real woman would stalk another female or sit back and allow that to go on? You really think they think it's nothing wrong with them?
So yesterday I went to the beach and like drank a couple of beers and just sat down there after laying in bed and sobbing for 2 hours because the private parts of my body were being burned and my breasts are removed. And
acceptable for the government to be watching and for teenagers to be sexually assaulted and raped, which is what happened to me. That
had attacked really, and
but it's hell at you, which, you know, starts to, everybody is all the time, you know, and so it discredits your character and your state of mind, which, you know, starts to make everybody believe something's wrong with you, you know, and then you start believing something's wrong with you, but it's not you, and you know that it's not you. It's just hard to prove. But don't go get, you know, mental health help. Don't see a psychologist or a psychiatrist. Most of the time they're involved too. Your police are involved, your firemen, your ambulance, you know, people at hospitals, you know, they're all involved. And it's unfortunate that we live in a society that gets a kick out of doing people like that. But it is what it is. The only thing you can do is stay strong and focus on the people you love. You know, I was lucky enough to have my mother who was going through the same thing that I was going through. They started saying all kind of crazy stuff to her at her jobs, and
and I am a victim of organized stalking, electronic harassment, microwave torture, V2K abuse, and I'm asking you to help us end this crime against humanity, which has impacted men, women, children all around the world.
Hi, I'm Wan from Malaysia. My family are targeted individuals. We are victims of cyber torture. And I will not give up. I will fight to the end.
And I'm a victim of organized
We need
stalking,
this to stop.
electronic
That's it.
harassment, and I'm speaking to you on International Targeted Individual Day. I live in the U.S., in Illinois, and I'm a victim of organized
We
stalking,
need this to stop.
electronic
That's it.
harassment, microwave torture,
I've been targeted for 9 years.
24/7.
Please become more aware of this crime and those
that the crime is being committed against. We need your support and help in ending this crime.
Hello, my name is Wendy Brown. I'm a targeted individual who is living in New Zealand, but my targeting began in California. I'm an American citizen, and the targeting continues in New Zealand. I'm making this video in remembrance of Targeted Individual Day, our third annual Targeted Individual Day. And I'm asking that every honest-hearted human being open their eyes to a crime.
My name is Jeanette. I am 56 years old and I live in Baltimore, Maryland. I am a victim of covert electronic harassment and torture. I am a targeted individual.
Hello. Why? Because it hurts. I need help. I need you guys to come get me. It's brutally painful. I have a house, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms.
Ms. Catherine Nestor.
My name is Catherine Nestor, and I'm from Pennsylvania. This commission has spoken of a long history of abuse of the human research subject. Although no one mentioned MKUltra today, President Clinton recently apologized for this. My young child and I have been used as non-consensual test subjects. We have been subjected to COINTELPRO-like stalking, remote neural monitoring, and electromagnetic torture, resulting in psychological and physical damage. And I won't go into the details of that because I have 4 pages written in here that is very similar to Connie's testimony. Please do not wait 70 years to investigate this. I ask Dr. Amy Gutman to begin today.
I am currently a speech-language pathologist working in private practice with young children. I had a 7-year-old client who has autism, and she was the most significantly affected of all of my clients. I eventually had to tell this client to go to another clinic, and they used her to threaten the most torture in me as well as their most extreme forms of torture. For several months, she would cry and scream horribly during our therapy sessions despite having a great day at school. This was highly unusual behavior for her, as she usually behaved very well during her therapy sessions. I observed her gasping for air a few times in the same way that I do when I am being more severely suffocated. The suffocation had been in a mild state for a while up until this point. Many of their torture methods are cyclical in severity. Right after I saw this child being suffocated, then I began to experience very extreme suffocation all day, every day, for about 2 months straight, and that's also when they made it worse when I eat. Then I also work with a 4-year-old little girl with Down syndrome, as well as her 5-year-old sister who also has Down syndrome. I observed both of these girls suddenly grabbing their genitals in pain and verbalizing, "ow." I observed this at least on 1 or 2 occasions for each of them during their separate sessions. During one session, I observed one of my 3-year-old clients suddenly grab his crotch and lean forward in his chair. And then he made a frightening grimace of severe
and have had a decent education. I live in El Dorado Hills, California, with my wife of 14 years, Lorna, and our 5 children.
Stalkers.
And coin some.
Even presidents get prosecuted if they commit crimes. But the reality is, my government has protected my abusers and even caused them to abuse me. And that since I was a child, when I was a child. And just like feeling like those ugly, helpless feelings, like
like I couldn't protect myself when I was 5, and like feeling like a lot hasn't changed since then, like, and some things have changed, you know, some things have changed, but just like those feelings of helplessness, of like not being able to really help myself. Looking at myself in the cameras helping, but I'm having bad PTSD. Just that mostly means that, well, I guess it's not regular PTSD because the back of my neck is being vibrated on and it's making my hands numb, feet numb, and my whole body shake. And I revert to like some mentality of like a 4 or 5-year-old. I don't think it's PTSD, but I don't know what else to call it exactly. I just feel vibrations on my head and my voice, and my thoughts aren't like a person my age when this happens to me. But I just feel afraid. And I don't know what to do, and I wish this would stop happening to me, and I wish that I was allowed to have help and be okay, and I don't think anyone's really allowed to help me, or they get into trouble. And that was true when I was little too. I'm just not coping very good. I don't feel like everything is alright. I shouldn't have to go through the same things as I did when I was little. I sent the Department of Justice a cease and desist and told them that they're acting in coercion with the entities and people that child sex trafficked me. And then I wondered if I wanted to, if it was safe, or if I was having bad psychology to send it. Like, because it made me feel like I was putting myself in more danger. But I just felt like I had to send it, and maybe I think there's someone good on the other side of the letter that would say, oh, this is bad, or I don't know. I'm afraid maybe that's not true, and it's just gonna get me killed. It's hard to tell the system that they do bad things, because it always wants to believe that it's good. It wants to believe that I'm shaking, that I'm bad and the system is good. And the system has raped me and done bad things to me so that it could say that I'm bad. And it's good. Like, if something really bad happens to me, it means more really bad things will have to happen so that the system can say it's my fault. Because the system has to be good and believe that it's good. And so that means I have to be bad if it does something bad to me. Disabled. Pray for me, please.
Hey, I just woke up after a pretty rough night. The same thing happened last night. It was whenever I was trying to go to sleep, the private parts of my body began being burned again, and it felt like someone pushing out something inside of my body. So yeah, that's what I am up against today. But the abuse last night was pretty extreme. And your mouth feels just like my teeth are like pressed forward, and I don't know. It's a lot of strange things. I've been doing some research, I guess what it's called, organized stalking. I'm called a targeted individual. But the abuse last night was pretty extreme. I can feel it's going to be the same again today. Already on the harming of the private parts of my body. I don't really know what to do. I tried to go to a doctor to get some kind of pain medicine, because what actually happens to me, what is happening to me is my actual physical body is being burned. So it causes me to go into shock, and it's excruciatingly painful. And I have my limitations on the duration and length of pain that I can handle. So it was a couple of weeks ago, I asked him what he was doing there, and he said that I needed to stay in my room. And I asked why, and he said that essentially they wanted to keep an eye on me for a while. And I was like, okay, for how long? And he was like, well, we haven't decided that yet. And I was like, all right, well, I'm leaving. But it definitely felt like if I talk about what's happening to me, that I'm being retaliated against. And I know the logical mind is like, well, everyone can't be involved. But it seems that, I don't know if the government has the right to watch and the proper paperwork, just walk right in and take over a hospital. And it seems that that is a very real reality in a lot of capacities of the things that I've faced. So today, just kind of just feeling some pretty general fear about my own safety, because the government's burning the private parts of my body. Sometimes it feels like a laser.
People's
to control. Just like feeling like those ugly, helpless feelings, like I could.
So this gets into creating Manchurian candidates, split personality, and information curve. satanic
Evaluations must be stopped. Many people's lives at risk. They affect men, women, and children. Many have died already.
The Pentagon, the